Appreciate my wife letting me sing with her. She is the singer in the family, but I own the van, so I get to come along. Amen. Thank you for being here tonight, and I appreciate the goodness of the Lord. And I tell you what we're going to do now. We have not run out of sitting messages. Matter of fact, at 5 o'clock this morning, I was studying a little bit in the book of Ruth, and Ruth sitting down, and then Boaz sitting down, and then a little later in the day I was studying in Hebrews chapter 10 about the Lord sitting down. It's amazing how many times in the book of Hebrews we find the Lord sitting down because He's the high priest and the work is done. Amen. And then a little later I was in Revelation chapter number 20 and looking at the Lord seated upon the throne. So we have a lot of those left, but I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to take a little bit of a detour, and I hope that you won't mind. But I want us to look at a thought tonight for just a few moments. I just feels like the Lord would have me go this direction. And I want to deal with one verse. I'm going to read the verse, and then I want to go to the Old Testament and read a little bit in the Old Testament. And what I will do, one of my dear friends, Brother Dale Vance, a fine preacher, he always says that repetition is the greatest tool for learning. So here's what I'm going to do for the next few moments. I'm going to say the same thing to you over and over and over and over again for about 20 or 25 minutes. We'll see how long it takes. But I want to deal with one verse and then give you an Old Testament illustration. The verse that I'm interested in is in Romans chapter number 8. Romans chapter number 8 and verse number 28. And we know this verse. Most of us can quote this verse. We've heard it preached on. We've read about it. We've taught on it. We've studied it. We've memorized it. But I'm interested in it tonight. Because as much as we hear about it, and as well as we know it, and as often as we quote it, I sometimes wonder if we really believe it. So I want us to think about it tonight for a little while. Romans chapter 8, verse 28. And if you're disappointed about sitting, we'll hit them next time I come through, okay? Romans chapter 8, verse 28 says this, and we know. Now, don't you like that word know? It didn't say, and we suppose. It didn't say, and we think. It didn't say, and we wonder. It said, and we know. That's a good solid word right there, isn't it? I know something. And we know, watch it now, that all things, now he didn't say some things. He didn't say many things. He didn't say certain things. He said all things. What does all mean? It means exactly what it said. All things. And we know that all things work together for what? For good. For good. To them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. So I would say something to you tonight. If you love God and your life is surrendered to His purpose, everything that He's doing is for your good. Now, what is the good that He's talking about? Well, we better read the next couple of verses. For whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many brethren. What is the good that He's working toward? It's that you and I would be conformed to the image of Christ. So all things are working together for good. Now here's what I could do tonight. I could go ahead and give you some illustrations from my own life and from the lives of people that I know where I've seen how certain circumstances that did not look good on the surface and did not look good at the moment worked out for their good. But if I did that, you might go home and say to yourself, well, you know, Brother McBride was trying to make a point and he might have stretched the truth a little bit, or he might have embellished just a little bit because you don't know the story and you didn't see the illustration. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I will give you an illustration from the Bible. We will not embellish. We will not exaggerate. We'll just take it right from the Word of God. I want you to go back to the book of Genesis, and we're going to start in a moment. I want to read a verse from chapter number 50 of the book of Genesis, but then we're going to go back and start in Genesis 37, and we're just going to follow along in the life of a man named Joseph. And not just Joseph, but Joseph's family. And what we're going to see is that these things that happened in his life that looked terrible at the moment all worked out for his good. And because he loved God and was called according to his purpose. And you say, well, did Joseph know that God was working it out for his good? Maybe not right in the middle of it, but when it was all said and done and Joseph was on the far side of it and could look back, here's what he said. Genesis chapter 50. He's talking to his brethren. He says in verse 20, "But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass as it is this day, to save much people alive." Now, did you hear what he said? He said, you meant it for evil, the things that his brothers did. We'll talk about those things in a moment. Joseph said, you meant it for evil. Now, let me say this. Those things the boys did, we're going to read about them in a little bit. God did not prompt them to do them. God did not ordain them to do them. It was not that God said, I'm going to get these boys to treat Joseph bad. That's not what happened. They did what they did out of evil designs. They did what they did in a free will and in their own responsibility. But what happened was there was a sovereign God who overruled what they did and turned it around for good. I'm glad that God is able to make all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Now go back with me to Genesis 37. Here is where we really find out a lot about this young man Joseph. We're introduced to him prior to this, but here's where we find out his story and really where it takes off. The book of Genesis is divided into 4 parts, and this last part is all about the life of Joseph, starting in chapter 37 on through chapter number 50. Now here's what the Bible said in verse 2. Would you look at it? Genesis 37, verse 2. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now let me say this about this evil report. Somebody have said, and brother, if you turn this mic up just a little bit, I'm straining just a touch. I've heard someone say that Joseph was a tattletale, that he was a busybody, that he came and told on his brethren. But wait a minute now. We're going to read in a moment that Joseph has the coat of many colors. We're going to read in a moment, and it signifies the fact that Joseph's father has given him the position of firstborn. Right or wrong, he's given him the position of firstborn. It was Joseph's responsibility to bring a report to his father of what his brethren were doing. As a matter of fact, later in chapter 37, you will find that his father sends him to where his brethren are for the exact purpose of finding out what they're up to. And so he is not being a tattletale, not being a busybody. He's doing what he's supposed to do in that particular instance. Now, he brings the evil report. Now, verse 3 said, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. Now watch verse 4. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, watch this now, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. Now I want you to think about this a moment. And I want you to picture it in your mind. Here is Joseph. He has all these brethren. There's Reuben, there's Simeon, there's Levi, there's Judah, there's Zebulun, there's Asher, there's all of these brethren, all of these boys that were from his mother or from the concubines. All of these boys, see, they're his brethren. So here Joseph gets up in the morning. Now what did it say? It said they hated him. And it said they hated him so much they could not speak peaceably unto him. So here is Joseph. I'm picturing him getting up one morning. I don't know if he's in a separate tent. I don't know if they're all sleeping in the same tent. I don't know. But he gets up one morning, steps out of the tent. There's Reuben there, and there's Simeon, and there's Levi. He said, hey, fellas, how you doing? And they would glare at him. And one of them said, why don't you get out of here? We want nothing to do with you. We can't stand you. We hate you. They could not speak one peaceable word to him. They couldn't say to him, well, good morning, Joseph. Good to see you. They couldn't do that. They could not speak unto him peaceably. They hated him. Now, I'm just wondering, you think when Joseph got up in the morning, walked out there, and all his brothers, it said all of them, they hated him, all those boys. Do you imagine when they speak to him that way, everything they say to him is hateful. Everything they say to him is obnoxious. Everything they say to him is to try and tear him down and to destroy his life. Do you think when they get done talking to him like that, do you think Joseph stepped back and said, boy, this is going to be good. This is going to turn out good. I tell you, things are going to be good in my family. No, I think he would have felt just like you felt when somebody in your family turned against you, when somebody in your family spoke hatefully to you, and somebody looked at you with that stern look and that contemptuous look. He probably felt the same way you feel. I don't think he said, boy, this is going to be good. This is going to turn out right. My family's going to turn out well. I don't think he said that. But what does the Bible say? And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Then you know what happens? Joseph has a dream. He actually has two dreams. And in the one dream, his brethren bow down to him. And then in the second dream, his brethren and his parents bowed down to him. And so he told the dream. He told them what God had given him. Told them about the dream that he had. And when he got done, his father was upset with him. He said, shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee on the earth? And his brethren, the Bible said in verse 11, envied him. Now, envy is an interesting word. Envy, the Bible said, is the rottenness of the bones. Envy, we sometimes mistake envy and jealousy. We say, well, they're the same thing, but they're not the same thing. Jealousy is not always sinful. Our God is a jealous God. Jealousy is when you have something and you're jealous to keep it. And God is jealous of his holiness, and there's no sin in that. But envy is something else. Envy always involves malice. It always begrudges somebody. When somebody envies you, what they're doing is they're begrudging you what you have, and they wouldn't mind if something happened to you so that they could have what you have. They think they're better suited for it. These boys are envying Joseph when he got done telling the dream, and they envied him, and they're not going to speak peaceably to him. They hated him yet the more. Do you think that when they got done and they said, they looked at him, I can imagine looking at him and saying, what do you mean bow down to you? We'll never bow down to you. We can't stand you. We'll never bow down before you. Think Joseph would walk away from the table after telling the dream and saying, boy, this is going to turn out good. This is going to be all right. I can see good things coming out of this. I doubt if he said that. And so then his father comes, the boys are off, and they're tending the sheep and the flocks, and he sends Joseph after them in Genesis 37 to find them. And look what it says in verse 18. Genesis 37, verse 18. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them. Now watch the language. They conspired against him. That word conspired, that's an interesting word. A conspiracy has to have two things involved in it. Number one, it must have premeditation. It must be planned. The other thing, it must involve more than one person. So all these boys get together and they plan this. And notice what they say to him, verse 19, or about him. They can't even call him Joseph. They can't even say our brother in this path. They said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. It was a term of derision. It was a derogatory remark. And then the Bible said in verse 20, come now therefore, let us slay him, cast him into some pit, and we will say, some evil beast that devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard of it, and he delivered them out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hand and deliver him to his father again. Now, I don't know what Reuben's got in mind, but Reuben leaves for a little while. But while he's there, they take Joseph, they strip the coat off him, they strip his clothes off, they throw him down in a pit. The Bible tells us there's no water in the pit. Later on, when Joseph gets to Egypt, We know the story, how he's risen up, he's lifted up and becomes the second ruler. But when he's there and those boys come and see him, we find out something else that happened here that we're not told in chapter 37. Reuben tells us that he pleaded with them. So when they took Joseph and stripped that coat off him and threw him down in the pit where there was no water, he was pleading with them. We also find out in Genesis 37 that once they threw him in the pit, they sat down around the mouth of that pit and ate bread. Now, would you think about that a minute? How hard would your heart have to be if you've just taken your own brother, stripped his clothes off, thrown him in a pit, and you're planning to kill him? Looks like your conscience would bother you enough that you'd be looking around to see if anybody saw you, but they don't care a bit. They're sitting around the mouth of that pit, and they're eating a meal while Joseph is down there. There's no water in the pit. He's cold. He's pleading with them, please let me go. Do you think Joseph is down there in that pit? His brethren have done this to him, thrown him down there. Do you think he'd be down there saying, I can see where this is going to be good. I can see how this is going to turn out well. I can see good things coming out of this. I don't think so. And then while they're sitting there and Reuben's off trying to figure out how to get Joseph out of that pit, here's what the Bible said. They look up and they see a caravan coming. And Judah said, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Let not our hand be upon him. He said, come now, let us sell him and let not our hand be upon him, as though their hand had not already been upon him. Said, we'll sell him. He said, you know what? If we're going to get rid of him, we might as well make a little coin out of this deal. And so they sell him. Those Ishmaelite traders come up, the Midianites and the Ishmaelites. And the Bible tells us in the book of Psalms that he went off, gives us the idea that he went off in chains and in fetters. So I see Joseph, and he's in chains on his legs, and chains, fetters on his arm, and he's in chains, and he's shuffling off into the desert. He's in line with the rest of the slaves, and they're headed for the slave markets, and he's shuffling off. There's probably slave masters along. There are probably whips involved, and he's shuffling along into the desert. Do you think while he's shuffling along in the desert, chained in his hands, and chained in a line of slaves, and chains on his feet, and the whip upon his back, and his brethren back there counting their money, do you think Joseph is saying in his heart, this is going to be good? I can see this turning out well. I'm sure there's good coming. No, I think he'd be doing the same thing you are. And the same thing I would. We'd be saying, oh, woe is me. How am I going to get out of this? Where am I going to end up? I can't believe my brothers have done this unto me. I can't believe that Joseph would be shuffling off into the desert thinking about how good it was going to be. And then after he's gone, Reuben comes back, and when he comes back, the pit is empty. Joseph is gone, and Reuben, he's heartbroken. He doesn't know what to do. He said, the boy is gone. He said, what am I going to do? Do you think when he came back and saw that empty pit and said to his brothers, where's Joseph? And they said, we got rid of him for good. We sold him. They carried him off. Do you think Reuben said, well, I can see how this will turn out well. I can see good things coming out of this. Then you know what they do? They take that coat of Joseph's and they kill an animal and they smear his blood all over that coat. And they take it to his father. And here's what the Bible said. They sent the coat in verse 32 of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it. Verse 33, he knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast that devoured him, Joseph, is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. He said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. I don't hear Jacob say, this is going to turn out all right. I don't hear him say in that passage, there's good going to come out of this. He's saying what you and I would say if our hearts were broken like his is. He said, I'm going to mourn. I'll never get over this sorrow. That's what he means when he said, I'll go down to my grave mourning. He said, I'll never get over this heartbreak. I never will. He said, I'll never have joy again. I'll never be glad again. I'll never get over this. And his sons and his daughters come, all of them. The Bible said all of them. It said all his daughters, his sons and all his daughters came to comfort him. But he refused. He's not saying, I can see good coming out of this. I can see how this will turn out well. So they take Joseph and they carry him in chapter 39. 38 is a little a story kind of off the beaten trail. And we get to chapter 39 and Joseph is on the slave block. He's standing there. Can you imagine now? He's standing in chains. Here's the boy that had the coat of many colors. Here's the boy that was loved by his father more than any of the rest. Here's the boy that was set above his brethren. Now what is he? He's standing on the slave block. You know what they're doing? They're looking him over. They're feeling of his arms. They're looking at his teeth. They're saying, what's he worth? What's he worth? Some of them are saying, well, he's not worth much. Some of them say, well, he's young. Some said, yeah, but look at him. He's not strong. Look at him. I don't think he's worth a whole lot. He's standing there like a piece of meat. And they're beating on him. Do you think while he's standing there and they're beating on him, you think he's thinking in his mind, I can see some good in this? I don't think so. And so they take Joseph, they sell him to Potiphar. He goes to Potiphar's house, and the Lord blesses him. The Lord is with Joseph. That's what the Bible said. And he was a prosperous man there in the house, and things are going a little bit better. They're looking up a little bit. He's still a slave. He's still bought and paid for, but things are looking up. And then Potiphar has a wife, and she's wicked. And she looks at him one day, and she begins to lust after him. And she lusts after him, and finally she says to him, lie with me. Lie with me. And Joseph looks at her, and he said he refused. He said, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none in this house that greater than I, and neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? He said, no, I won't do it. So you know what she did? He turned her down once, but here's what she did. The Bible said day by day, as he had to come into the house and do whatever it is that he had to do his master's bidding, every day when he would come in, she would say the same thing. Lie with me. She would try and get him to commit adultery day after day after day after day. If he had to go into the house to do whatever it was he was supposed to do, every time she would say, lie with me. Every time she would try and get him to commit adultery. And then finally, she'd had her fill of talking and she put her hands on him. You say, preacher, how do you know? Because the Bible said he fled and left his coat in her hands. Do you think every day when she's saying to him, lie with me, she's saying, commit adultery with me, commit immorality, do you think every day when he would go in, he would say on the way into the house or on the way out of the house, I can see how this is going to turn out well. I can see how this is going to be good. I can see good coming out of her wickedness. I can see it. I don't think he said that. So when he runs out of the house, she takes the coat or the garment, the coat, and lays it up till her husband gets home. And when her husband gets home, she lies. She spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried, and he left his garment with me and fled out. She's lying. Anybody ever lie about you? Ever been lied about? You ever had somebody day after day after day try and tempt you to do wrong? She lies. But what's Potiphar going to do? I think now, this may be McBrideology. I think he knew what kind of wife he had. He didn't put Joseph to death. But in order to save face, he put him in the prison. So here is Joseph. He goes in the prison. I don't know what all this prison is like, but when I think of prison, I think bars. And so here he is in the prison. Do you think when those bars shut and Joseph now is in the prison, do you think he's thinking in his mind, this is going to be good. This is going to turn out well. I can see good coming out of this. Well, he's in the prison and God gives him favor with the keeper. And then one day, the butler and the baker, Pharaoh's butler and Pharaoh's baker are in the prison. And Joseph comes in, and there they are in the prison, and they're sad. I've got a funny sense of humor. Joseph looks at them and said, why look ye so sadly today? And I want to say, because we're all in prison, that's why. But here's why they look sad. They've had dreams, and there's nobody to interpret. And Joseph looks at them and says, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me the dream thereof. And so they tell the dream. The baker tells his dream. The butler tells his dream. So he tells the butler, he tells his first. He tells the butler, he said, here's what the dream means. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He said, Pharaoh's going to lift you back up, put you in your position in 3 days' time. And the baker hears that, so he wants to hear about his dream. He said, here's my dream. He said, well, what your dream means is 3 days, Pharaoh's going to take your head off. He's going to hang you on a tree. And so when the butler is restored to his position, as he's leaving the cell, as he's walking out, here's what Joseph says. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of his house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. So I know Joseph is not thinking this is going to get good. This is going to get better. He said this is all wrong. I don't belong here. I shouldn't be. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever in your Christian life got in a situation and you looked at it and said this is all wrong. This shouldn't be. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. This is how I thought. This is all wrong. That's what Joseph is saying. But I'm thinking of Joseph. He helped that butler. He was good to that butler. And he said, now you remember me. I'm thinking the next day Joseph is saying he'll come back today and get me. And then another day. And maybe a week goes by and Joseph says to himself, well, he's got to get back to work there. He's got a lot to do and probably hadn't had time. Maybe he hadn't even seen Pharaoh yet. And then another week goes by. And then a month goes by. And then another month goes by. And then another month goes by. No butler. 2 whole years. Do you think during those 2 years, Joseph was thinking every day, it's going to get better. It's going to be good. No, I think he's probably thinking, well, there's no hope of the butler ever thinking of me. And then Pharaoh has a dream. 2 dreams. One dream's about the cattle and one dream's about the corn. And in the corn dream, the cattle dream, there's all these cattle and they're fat. And then there's these lean cattle and you eat up the fat cattle. And then there's these corns and they're fat ears of corn. And then the lean ears and they eat up. And he doesn't know what it means. And the wise men don't know what it means. And he's trying to figure out. And all of a sudden, here is the butler. And the butler suddenly remembers Joseph. He said, I remember. He said, there was a young man, a Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him and he interpreted to us our dreams, to each man according to his dream. And it came to pass as he said. And they called Joseph and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh told him the dreams. He said to Pharaoh, or said to Joseph, he said, I have heard of thee that thou canst interpret dreams. And Joseph said, it's not in me, O king. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. And so he tells him the dream. And Joseph basically tells him this. Here's what's going to happen. There's going to be 7 years of plenty like you've never seen, but it's going to be followed by 7 years of leanness that'll make the years of plenty, you'll forget them. And he said, I tell you what you better do in those 7 fat years. You better find somebody. He said, let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. He said, you better find somebody who's got some wisdom so that in those fat years you lay things up so you won't starve to death in the lean years. Pharaoh said, well, he said, can we find such a one as this is, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And he exalts Joseph. Things are looking up, aren't they? And he makes him second ruler in Egypt. Gives him a wife, gives him children. So now the famine comes in. They go through the 7 years. They put everything away. They get everything gathered. And now the 7 lean years come. And it's not just in Egypt. It's in Canaan. And you know what's happening? Joseph's family back in Canaan, they're starving. And so Jacob says to his boys, I've heard there's corn in Egypt. Go down there and buy us corn. So those boys get their money and they put it in their sacks and they head down to Egypt. And when they get to Egypt, they meet this fella who's in charge. And it's Joseph, but they don't know it's Joseph. He looks like an Egyptian. He's dressed like an Egyptian. He talks like an Egyptian. But he knows who they are. He recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And here's how they describe their interaction with him. The Lord of that country spake roughly unto us. And he did. He said, I'll tell you what you are. You're spies. You've come to spy out the land. They said, we're not spies. We're true men. That was a lie. They weren't true. They were liars. They said, we be true men and we be brothers, and one is not. That was Joseph. He was not what they thought he was. And the littlest one is at home, the lad's at home. And Joseph said, that is it that I said unto you, ye are spies. And while he's telling them that, Reuben said, I'll tell you why this is happening to us. It's because of what we did to our brother. Reuben is not saying, and those boys are not saying, can you imagine being in a foreign land where you know no one? And they take you for spies and they're going to put you all into prison. Can you imagine? They're not saying, boy, this is going to be good. Reuben said, I'll tell you what, we're getting what we deserve. And Joseph's not trying to get even with them. He's trying to bring them to a place of repentance. And so, finally, Joseph, he's going to put them all in the prison. The next morning he comes, he said, this do, for I fear God. Leave one of you in your prison. The rest of you go home. Take your corn and go home. So they keep Simeon. When they close Simeon in that jail, do you think Simeon said, good going to come out of this? I don't think so. Have you ever been accused of something you were not guilty of, and you had to suffer for it even though you didn't do it? And maybe you would say, like these boys probably said, I can't see any good in this. And so those boys go home. When they go home, they tell their father, they say, now, and Joseph said, now, if you have to come back, don't come back unless you bring your little brother, Benjamin. He didn't know, he knew the name, but he didn't tell him he knew the name. So they go home. And when they go home and they're speaking to their father, he said, what happened? They said, well, the Lord of that country spake roughly to us, and he took us for spies. And he said we couldn't come back unless we bring our little brother. And then they start opening their sacks to get out the corn. And you know what they find? They find all their money because Joseph had his servants put it back in there. And it scares them to death. And then they say to their father says to them, why dealt ye so evilly with me to tell him that you had a little brother? He said, my son shall not go down to Egypt with you. He said this, Joseph is dead, and Simeon is dead, and you will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. They weren't against him. They were for him. But it didn't look like it. So they run out of food. Jacob says, you boys better go back to Egypt. They said, we told you we can't go back to Egypt unless we take Benjamin with us. Finally, he said, if it must be so. He tells them to do several things. He tells them to take the little brother, and they head back to Egypt. When they get back there, they come to the steward, and they say, we found our money, the money that we paid you for the corn we took last time. We found it in our sacks, and we don't know how it got there. And he said, it's all right, I had your money. And Joseph brings them in, and they have a meal. That meal is interesting. I don't have time to preach on it. But then Joseph tells his steward, he said, now, when they get ready to leave, you go out and put my silver cup in the sack of the youngest. So he does. He hides it in there. And they take off. They've got their corn now. They put the money, the steward puts their money back in the sack. They head down the road. They get down the road a little way. Joseph said, all right, get up after him. And when you find him, tell him, why did you steal from my Lord? And so when they get there, they stop them. And they said, what's going on? They said, which one of you stole the cup? They said, we don't know what you're talking about. Search us. And whoever you find it with will be your servants. So they go to search, and guess where they find the cup? Right where the steward put it, in Benjamin's sack. And man, do you think when they found that cup, do you think they looked at one another and said, this is going to be good? I can see this working out good. So they come back, and they're broken now. They're broken men. They come back. They're not only broken, they're repentant. And they come back and they say to Joseph, we're your servants. We're guilty. We've been found out. We're your servants. They don't know it's Joseph. They said, we'll be your servants. He said, no, not all of you, but just the youngest. I'm keeping the youngest. That's his little brother, Benjamin. The one they always call the lad. The one they love and care for. The one that will break his daddy's heart. Now here's what happened. Judah becomes a wonderful picture of Christ. Because he comes up to Joseph and he said, let me speak a word in my Lord's ear. And he talks to Joseph about this boy. And he tells him, he said, my father is an old man. And he said his life is bound up in the life of the lad. And he said, if I go home without the lad, he said, I don't want to see my father's grief. What he's saying is, I've seen this grief before, and I can't stand to see it again. That's what Joseph was waiting to hear. He was waiting to hear if they were not only sorry for what they've done, but if they never wanted to go through it again. They are repentant. And then he makes this statement. Here's what Judah says. He said, take me and let the lad go. He becomes a picture of Christ, because that's what Jesus did. He said to his father, take me and let Brian McBride go. And then Joseph reveals himself to his brethren. He comes out. He kisses them, all of them. He tells them who he is. I'm your brother, Joseph. It scares them. It makes them worried. They're afraid. He said, don't be afraid. I'm going to take care of it. He said, is my father yet alive? They say, yeah. He said, all right, I'm going to give you some wagons, and you go get him. And so they get the wagons. They head down. They go back. They get their father. And when they said, Joseph is alive. They get to Jacob. They said, Joseph is alive, and he's Lord of that country, and he loves us. And Jacob, he can't believe it. But when he sees the wagon, his spirit is revived. And here's what he said. He said, it is enough. I will go and see my son. You know what happened? All those things did what? It worked out for good. What kind of good? The good of a man, Joseph. It was good for him. The good of a family, Jacob's family. It was good for them. It didn't look good, but it was good. It was good for a nation, Israel. They would have been destroyed in the famine. But Joseph went on ahead. It was good for the world, because out of that Israelite nation of the tribe of Judah came the Son of God, the Lamb of God, the Savior of the world. He would have never come out of that nation if they'd have died in that famine. It all worked for good. And when it's all said and done, Joseph says, those boys, you meant it for evil. I know you did. Look up here. Things have happened in your life that people meant for evil. That was their intent. They meant it for evil. But all the while they were meaning it for evil, God was meaning it for good. And every time that you and I in our life looked at our situation, whatever it was, and looked at it and said, there's no good going to come out of this. You know what we were? We were wrong. Preacher, how do you know we were wrong? Because here's what my Bible said. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. By the way, can I just throw this in here? Is there any other Old Testament character that looks more like Jesus than Joseph? No. And remember what that good is? To conform us to the image of Christ. It worked for Joseph. It worked for us. So every time we think, this is the worst thing that could have happened, there's no good can come out of this, we're wrong. Because the Bible said, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And God not only told us that, he gave us proof text of it, an illustration of it in the Old Testament. So let's do more than just quote it. Let's do more than just memorize it. Let's do more than just preach it. Let's believe it and live by it. And let's trust the Lord and say, now, Lord, I can't tell you that I can see the good in this. But I can tell you that I know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are the called according to his purpose. I want you to bow your heads a moment. Heads are bowed and your eyes are closed. Joseph said, but as for you, you thought evil against me. But God meant it unto good. I'll tell you what we ought to do tonight. We probably need to come to an altar and bow the knee and say, Lord, I want to tell you I'm sorry. Now listen to me. I'm not making light of anything that's happened to you. I'm not making light of your heartache. I'm not making light of your hurt. I'm not making light of any of it. I'm just saying to you, if you love God, he means it for good. That's what the scripture said. Maybe we ought to come and bow our knee and say, Lord, would you forgive me for all the times I questioned and all the times I doubted? And would you help me, Lord, to be thankful that you're working things out for my good, to conform me to the image of Christ. Maybe we ought to do that tonight. Father, please help us in this service. Lord, in this auditorium, there are heartaches, there are hurts, there's pain, there are problems. But yet, Lord, we love you. And we're called according to your purpose. And I pray, Lord, you'd give us grace that we might praise you and glorify you. And we'll just keep on serving you, knowing that all things work together for good. And one day, like Joseph, we'll be able to see it. So you help us tonight. I believe that'd be walking by faith, Lord. You help us with it, would you please? And forgive us for our frailty. And I pray in Jesus' name.